Welcome to VPG's virtual water cooler chat podcast, where we share lessons and stories of women professionals to help empower other women and expand a greater circle of influence. So we walk our journey with those who understand and appreciate us. Today, we are going to chat with Tara Kim Eberhart. Tara is a Senior Director of Practice Management at Dentons US LLP. She is also the President of the International Practice Management Association, IPMA, and a founding member of CHIEF, DC Chapter. CHIEF is a private network for the most powerful women in leadership. She is proud to be a recovering paralegal, having started off her legal career doing real work, as she says, before transitioning into management and then ultimately focusing her career on the business side of the law. Tara is known for her in-depth operational knowledge and ability to implement enterprise-level innovation and technology solutions. In her spare time, Tara is an avid reader and is learning how to be an empty nester with her husband, Robert, now that her daughter, Madison, is a fully launched adult.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on Virtual Water Cooler Chat. I am so excited to actually reunite with you here and to see you at the IPMA, as the president. So
thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Always happy to chat with you, Ashley, no matter what the topic.
Well, that pleasure is all mine. So let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about Tara Eberhart?
Yeah, sure. So Tara Eberhart, has a lot of things. Work is sort of central to what I'm focusing on now because I'm an empty nester. So I have enjoyed a really great career. I have a husband who I still like. My daughter lives in the area. I've been with my current firm, Dentons, although the name has changed and some of the faces have changed, but I'm really happy with what I'm doing, which I think we're going to talk a little bit more about today.
We're definitely going to hit on that. Thank you for sharing a little bit about who Tara is. Would you mind sharing your journey to becoming a leading professional in Dentons, chief founding member, and the president of the IPMA?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I started very proudly as a paralegal at a 6-attorney firm after I got my degree and sort of figured out what I wanted to do professionally. One of the lawyers that I worked with after I'd been there a couple of years was an engineer by trade. And he left to go to a patent firm in Alexandria, Virginia. And about 4 or 5 months after he left, he called me and said, I know you don't know beans about patents because we were in a family law and general practice firm, but if you'll come and you'll teach the patent paralegals how to go to trial, which I had tons of experience in, they'll teach you IP patents and trademarks. And I thought that was a really great trade because I've been trying to sort of think about what I wanted to specialize in. And so I went to Oblong Spivak and I was there for a number of years as one of their lead litigation paralegals. Then I decided if I wanted to go to a larger firm, I was going to have to go across the river in DC, right, into DC proper. So I had a chance to work with one of the executive level partners, Victor Valencia at Morgan. Mm-hmm. And I ran their biochemical patent litigation shop for a number of years. And it occurred to me one day when I was sort of sitting preparing expert reports, and there was a lot of commotion in the hallway, that we were having a holiday party and the firm had invited everyone by distribution list except the 54 paralegals that worked in the building. They had left us off of the distribution list for the holiday party. And so it occurred to me that maybe, we had a lot of really great paralegals, but maybe I wanted to go back to school and get my master's in legal administration and sort of go into more of management and try to carry some of the concerns and opportunities and voices for the paralegals to more of the leadership. And then from there, Silly People hired me at McKenna Long and Aldridge to manage their DC office and then let me manage the US. And in 2015, McKenna got purchased, bought out, merged, acquired, whatever the polite term is, by Dentons, and continued to run the paralegal program until a couple of years ago. And I think moving into practice management was a big step for me. And I know I was managing in a practice capacity before, But it was important to me to really sort of, focus on the business side of law as well as the people side. And so, I had an opportunity to go into practice management.
You actually know my professor at GW, Tyler Goodwin.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, he's here at Dentons now. He works on the 8th floor. So love Tyler.
Well, please say hi to him for me. I used to be in construction litigation. So before I finished, I took his IP course at GW at the paralegal program.
Yeah.
And when I finished, and he was like, I think you could probably do patent litigation. I said, I don't know anything about patent. He was like, you did construction litigation. Did you know anything about construction? No.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of transferable skills there. That was really, really helpful. And I have a friend that actually we were in the same class. And whenever we talk about like our IP professor, we have really, really good memory. So just kind of let him know that we're thinking about him.
I will. I told him after he left the program, Tony Marsh, who runs the program, asked me if I wanted to teach. And that was a little bit intimidating for me because my mom was a teacher, when I was growing up. And I always sort of really looked up to people who taught. But I had the opportunity to teach in the paralegal program at GW. And I did that for 15 semesters. And I taught the litigation course, which was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I also know Tony Marsh from the NCAPA days.
Yep.
That's been so long ago. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with Chief?
Yeah. So Chief is a relatively, new association. It was created in the last 5 years by two founders in New York, two women who thought that, a lot of women who are in leadership don't have a lot of peers. And also, we tend to spend a lot of time working on the professional development of our team, but not sometimes always focusing on our own professional development and having that sort of community of support. And so Chief was sort of created to give women a place to go and to find those mentors and sources of inspiration. So it was founded in New York, and I sort of stalked them for a year or two because they weren't in DC yet. And so I kept waiting for them to come to DC so that I could join, because at the time you had to wait till your city sort of opened. And so finally they announced that they were going to be coming to DC, and it was important to me to sort of be a founding member in DC of the first class. And so I went through the interview process and the selection process, and those silly people picked me and gave me the opportunity to join. So I've been a member for 2 years. In May, I will be renewing for my 3rd year.
You have a lot of encounters of silly people in your life. That's probably a good sign that you're good people.
Yeah, well, I've been really fortunate because, everybody sort of needs somebody to believe in them so that you can sort of believe in yourself, I think. And I think for women, I was talking to a friend the other day, women, when there's a job description that has, 10 requirements, if women haven't done at least 8 of them, we won't apply because we don't see that we can grow into that role. Men, on the other hand, take a different approach. 3
to 3. They have like perfect candidate.
Right. And so they're like, hey, I've done 3 or 4 of them. I can do the rest of that. Absolutely. I'm going to just put my name out there. So a lot of what I'm trying to do now as I'm in different leadership positions is to amplify and to identify, other women that are really doing great things, and for us to help mentor and encourage, other women to realize how awesome they are and to go into leadership positions or management positions or to start their own business or, whatever their passion may be.
So let's talk about IPMA. Now that you are the president, can you share your thoughts and vision for the organization and give us a little bit of your perspective of how this organization can grow in the near future to help the practice management space?
Yeah, so it's actually sort of fortuitous because we just had a 2-day retreat for the board. So we spent a lot of time, talking about those issues. But IPMA has been around for over 40 years. It was originally the International Paralegal Management Association, and as a lot of our roles as paralegal managers started to get broader, and we started to take on responsibility in other areas. We rebranded to recognize that as the International Practice Management Association. And the conversation that we're having now is similar to what I'm having internal to my firm, which is, what is practice management? And I think there's, a lot of different answers for that, and different law firms sort of address that differently. In some firms, practice management is very, very business focused. And you are responsible, for the economics of the practice. You work with the practice group leaders. You make a lot of strategic decisions about the direction, and then you sort of, implement those. At other firms, it's completely the opposite. And practice management means, how to keep the trains on track and how to establish processes in the practice. And, so I think, a good combination of that is where the sweet spot is for practice management. You have to have both, right? You have to have a great strategy and where you're going, and you have to have the ability to actually implement that and execute to make sure that you're on track. So at the International Practice Management Association, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take people who have worked in one particular area as a manager or a leader and get them to continue their professional development so that they can be well-versed in all those different areas and contribute to the law firm's big picture.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I mean, where do you find the time to do all of this?
Well, I mentioned at the beginning, right, that I'm an empty nester, and I've been really fortunate that that my daughter is launched, but certainly not, out of mind. These are things that, over the last 20 years, I've had folks that have taken a lot of time to mentor me and work with me and give me opportunities. And I felt like with Chief, obviously, very specific focus on women's leadership and opportunities. And with IPMA, very close to what I do every day and sort of helping to define what practice management is. So for me, they're great conversations so that I always have the opportunity to think outside the box and to think about what works best for me and not to get in a rut, which is something that I think we all try to focus on not doing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you were once a paralegal, so a recovering paralegal now.
Yep.
What do you find as the most challenging aspects of you going from recovering paralegal to paralegal managers, and now focusing more and expanding on the business side of things? What are some of the things that is so not quite innate? I mean, I think that you are a great learner, but for example, for me, the business side of things is like the P&L, those really drive me nuts at the beginning, but yet it's so important. If you're not comfortable with the finance part of it, you can run your business. So I just wonder, at the sort of the scope of the management aspect that you had to handle, what do you find as the most intimidating, if there's any?
I think as a recovering paralegal, I think that we're sort of the folks that come up with the ways to accomplish things, right? We're the executors. We're the folks that, you need to get something filed by a certain time. That's what we do, right? You need to galvanize a whole bunch of people to accomplish something. That's what we do. Paralegals sort of start with the question of how do we do it? And when you switch into practice management, sometimes you have to start with the question of should we do it? Right. And so you have to I have to overcome that training of years and years of, okay, let's execute, to really stepping back and saying, is that something that we should be doing? Is that something I should be doing? Should I be partnering with other people? Is that something that I should be entrusting to other departments, et cetera? So I always want to be collaborative. I always want to understand how things work. I always want to be very people focused, which is really important to me. But I also, as I've advanced in my career, I have to be careful about spending time on the things that are going to make the most impact on what I'm being asked to do versus just being productive, right? On a whole bunch of things. And I think no matter what people's roles are, we all struggle with that. I heard somebody describe your, email inbox as a list of everybody else's problems that people want you to do or things they want you to fix. So it's all about sort of managing other people's expectations and forming those relationships, but also having boundaries and
Yes.
saying, yes, that needs to get done. Yes, that's something, but that's really not something that putting all of my time and effort in is going to have the biggest impact. I really need to focus here. And I think that's probably been the biggest, challenge for me as I've stepped to the business side is remembering to look up and to question what I should be focusing on versus always starting from how do we fix that problem?
I think that is so on point. And I think that as a small business owner, at the beginning, you're totally right. Paralegals, we do this can-do spirit. I just can't do anything, right?
Right.
And then, but sometimes now the biggest challenge for me is that this is my business. So if I accept it, say a client or a business that is not good for my business, then there's so much more for me I put myself, my team, and my business at risk.
Yeah.
And that is something that I was a yes person. So I would say a lot more yes and I would say no. But then after you get burned a couple of times, you kind of learn, and actually I listened to one of the a brand strategist professor. In one of his talk, he basically said that it is quite flattering for people to come to you and say that, oh, can you please help me? But you have to think about if you take on a business that is more than you can chew, you are taking on liability and you're putting yourself and your business at risk. So I have never heard of people that put it that way because that was not the space of the people that I actually hang out with before. As a paralegal, when the attorney asks you to file by midnight, you get it done by midnight. You need to go do, XYZ Mission Impossible, you figure out how. No, it's not part of the equation. So that was one of the biggest challenges that I have during the first few years. But thank God I actually sought coaching from people, and I also met some really good people. So part of it is that I'm also a continuous learner and like to mentor people. So for my business, I got mostly women on the team. We got one guy, but everybody else, especially the two young ones, I just really enjoy seeing them grow in the past 2.5 years. And part of it is that when we said we need to have people to believe in us, especially in times like this, the society has so many different issues with COVID and everything and job layoff. And so it's really kind of a difficult time for people to remain positive, especially the younger one who doesn't necessarily have the direction. So I thought that was one of the way that I can actually use my company to become a vehicle to help make some changes at a small, in a small scale.
I always talk to, the managers that I have the privilege of working with about setting boundaries is really hard, right? Especially, in a law firm dynamic. I always talk to them about our real job is to get people what they need, not necessarily what they want. And that's an important distinction, right? Because sometimes what a person wants isn't going to get them to where they think they need to go. So if you continue to work with an associate, for example, and the associate, continues to not learn how to do something, but delegates it every time, that isn't great for that associate's development because they need to learn how to do it, and then they should delegate it. Again, best use of time and the team. But if that associate one night is by themselves and can't reach out to anyone, they need to know how to do it. That's a great sort of thing. You learn how to do the math first, and then you learn how to use the calculator. That's a good strategy. But it's hard for us to do that, right? Because every time when that person reaches out and wants to delegate, our executor and enabler gene as a paralegal or someone goes into full force, and we're like, we're here to help.
Yes,
And
put on a superwoman cape.
right. We will be, happy to do that. Right. So sometimes, we really need to focus on when people need, not what they want. But that's not always the popular answer. Right. But, one of the other things I think that's important now is we do have to be careful about sort of, boundaries from a mental health and from a physical well-being standpoint, because we're all doing a lot. And, this year especially is going to be challenging, just economically, from a business perspective, from a workforce perspective. And, we need to be conscious about the decisions we're making in business for our teams and in our personal life.
And I think for leadership, one of the things is like, do you want to be liked or do you want to be respected?
Yeah,
exactly. You could get, this is not a popularity contest, at least to me anyway. If it happened to be popular, great. But if not, some choices have to be made. And hopefully it's balanced all the stakeholders' interests. But at the same time, it's definitely not an easy road to be in leadership, especially this time.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a business owner, as a director, sometimes we have to tell people messaging that's hard. It's hard for them to hear. But we're doing that out of care and concern and out of trying to get them what they need, not what they want. But it doesn't make the messaging any easier, right? And at the end of the day, at the core of everyone is I'd like to also be liked. I'd like people to realize that I'm trying to do it out of care and concern, and not because I'm just trying to make your day difficult or quote policies to you or show you spreadsheets all the time. But it is hard to strike that balance because, a lot of our day is navigating problems and making sure that people are okay and, making sure that things are advancing and we're protecting the business.
Absolutely. Now, do you have any favorite quote that inspires you?
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite quotes that I use a lot is, I don't need easy, I just need possible. I'm okay with working hard. I come from a long line of people who work hard. That doesn't ever scare me. And rolling up my sleeves and doing something is not intimidating for me. But when I do something, I have to have that sort of inner optimist that what I'm doing matters, that I'm actually going to be able to sort of, make a change or accomplish something. So that's where the first step in a 2-year project comes from. That's where continuing to work with a team that is in the middle of a project and is tired and has a lot of other things on their plate. So again, I don't need easy, I just need possible. And I think that can take on a lot of different meetings in our day-to-day.
Definitely. Now, what do you do in your spare time to kind of maintain that mental fitness?
So I have a couple of things that I really enjoy or that I do to relax. So one, I'm a huge reader, and I think that reading is super, super important, especially if you're in a management or a leadership position, because you've got to keep testing your own assumptions and you've got to keep looking at different, options, and you just need information, right, in order to make decisions. So I try to read for at least 30 minutes every day, and I last year set a 52 book challenge for myself, which I met by Thanksgiving, which was super exciting. So I'm going to do it again this year. So reading is a big part of how I relax. Also, I entered into a new decade and had a lot of, big changes on my personal life. And so a couple of years ago, right before COVID, as a matter of fact, I made a decision to prioritize health and fitness a little bit more. And I've lost 95 pounds now. So everyone has been amazingly gracious and saying nice things. But I wasn't in a place that I wanted to be. And again, it wasn't about weight. It was just about, for me, sort of taking back some time and some self-care. If I lost a lot less weight, that would have been fine. It's not a number. It was about prioritizing me. So now 4 days a week, I go to the gym and I work out with a trainer. And that makes me feel like I'm starting my day focusing on me, and then I'm ready to sort of, face everything else, which is super important. And then just for fun, I'm always love a good game of Tetris with my husband. That's one of the things that when I'm just trying to like zone out, we'll do for fun on our, ancient Nintendo, or go antiquing, or just find finds in a flea market.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, to sum it up, what are some of the key lessons learned that you would like to share with our audience?
I think one of the things that is super important to me is that I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of things, and I hear these people and I think they're amazingly accomplished and, they've done so much. And I sort of feel like, okay, what am I doing? So first of all, every single, and I'm flattered that sometimes now people sort of put me in that category. But I've had a tremendous amount of failures in my career, right? I got fired from my very first job, when I came out of college, which for a super achiever, type A is like, an amazingly, crazy story. And I got fired by, Goodwill, the people with the smile that you bring stuff to, right? My point is that for every person that you see, a couple of minutes or you hear their story, they've had a lot of challenges that maybe, they don't talk about as much as they talk about their career trajectory or their success or what they've done. But it's there. And every one of those failures or things that weren't easy for them to do made them more open to opportunities, which then led to some of the great things that they describe in their story. So my thing would be for anybody listening to say that I've been really, fortunate, but I've worked incredibly hard for my career, but I've failed as many times as I've succeeded. And I hope that people are secure enough and okay enough to fail, because that's what makes for the really interesting stories.
Have you read Simon Sinek, Start With Why?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Simon also has his podcast, A Bit of Optimism.
Yep.
What he said was not failing, but falling.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact's a little bit less, especially for some people who has like perfectionism too, because that's something that I had to overcome a lot. And I think that change of vocabulary and the wording is what is really important to kind of do a mind shift.
Yep.
So that you can say, okay, well, I just fell. I'm going to get back up and start with where I left off, so that might help a little bit with someone who cannot handle the word failure,
Right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, every paralegal, right? Every paralegal, every person who, works in a law firm has that like story of something that went horribly wrong. We all have it. And the reason we all have that is because that was a pivotal moment for us where something went wrong and we learned, and we will make sure that never happens again. Right. But you have to have that experience, and you have to have that like butterflies, like sick to your stomach feeling in order to really understand. And sometimes, stuff happens and it's no fault of your own. It's just a series of, circumstances. But if you're involved in that, you don't forget it, and you definitely learn from it. And it's hard to translate to people who haven't had that experience why we do the things that we do to avoid having that.
One thing that I really, really do enjoy about our conversation is the openness.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, fear of judgment is my biggest problem.
Yeah.
I'm so worried about especially when you're like working for, super type A, literally rocket scientists, right? They are like PhD, has advanced degree in life sciences and, electrical, mechanical engineering. Honestly, I think that is something that once I got out, one of the first thing that I really knew that I need to work on is to not care about what people think, but not let it sort of like handicap me.
Yeah.
I think that has been the biggest lessons and the goal that I was trying to achieve.
Yeah. And I mean, again, in both of our roles, I think, Ashley, like people come to us, right, when they don't know the answer, right? When they have a problem, they come to you as a business owner and they say, can you help me solve the problem? People come to me 500 times a day and go, here's the problem. Like, what do we do about this? And so you get used to having the answers. You get used to being the person who can, first it's a small problem that you solve, and then the problems get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you get really good at solving problems and sort of saving the day. And that's addicting, right? That feeling is addicting, that, that you're really good at being that problem solver, and it, gives you an ego boost. And so the time that you don't have the answer, the time when you're doing something new, the time when you're doing something that's scary, that's when you have to go, okay, like, it's okay if I don't have all the answers. I'm going to figure it out. I'm capable of doing that. I can figure it out. But there's always that imposter syndrome. And the more a position of responsibility that you're in, the more I think that you feel that. And I think others, that's what happens, is they look at people in those, the person who has the quote in the magazine, or the person, being interviewed on TV, or, the subject matter expert. And they just go like, they know everything. They've got it together. I have a theory. It's called the SWAN theory that I've used for years. And I try to use it with especially new managers, because when people are coming to you and you don't have the answer, sort of as a new manager, sometimes you panic. And I tell them about the swan theory, right? The swan glides beautifully on the water. It's a beautiful, majestic bird, right? And you just look at it and you go, it's so beautiful. But underneath, it's paddling like crap. It's paddling super, super hard, and it's not pretty underneath the water. And so, sometimes what we're trying to do in positions is to give everybody that sense of calm, right? We have it. Everything's under control. Don't panic. And underneath, we're just paddling like crap. And that's okay. That's okay, because that's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you get comfortable. But sometimes it's okay to let people know that you're paddling. Sometimes that's all right. You don't have to always have that majestic view of this is easy, because a lot of the stuff, it isn't easy.
And also, sometimes we don't have to bear the sole responsibility of figuring everything out. That's what the team is here for.
That's right.
And one of the coach, Mark Green, actually said to me at one point, because I double booked myself. I was supposed to do a training, and then I was supposed to go to training myself. Normally I would go and miss the actual training for myself because I need to handle this. But then I decided that, and I didn't even have coaching on at that time. I just felt horrible because I went to the coaching myself. I had the other person to do the training. I said, just record it on Zoom. It'll be fine. I'll take a look at it. If there's anything that I need to redirect, I'll redirect. So I told the coach, I was like, I feel horrible. And this and that. He was like, I actually need to applaud you for doing this, because do you know how few opportunities does your team actually feel that they can show up and make a difference? Because most of the time, as a leader, we just kind of like, okay, here's what you do. But at the end of the day, they want those moments to prove themselves. So kudos to you. I was like, okay, I need to double book myself more often.
Yeah, somebody had to pull me aside. Someone who was very wise pulled me aside one time and said, I know as a new team leader that you think that delegating stuff to other people is dumping on them, right? But what you have to think of it as is a gift. You're giving them the opportunity to do something that they haven't done before, with you as the training wheels, with you as the safety. And by allowing them that new opportunity and giving them the confidence to do it, that's a gift. And so from that point on, because again, I was killing myself trying to do like a whole bunch of stuff that I really should not have been focusing on. And I viewed it as dumping on others, right? And then when I shifted my thinking to, I'm giving someone the gift of the opportunity and the opportunity to do something that they haven't done before, then sort of my whole way of looking at what I had changed. And I think that's important, because you had confidence in your team that it didn't have to be you. Somebody else on your team could do the training. And it's also important because you didn't short shrift yourself and your time for your own professional development, which is what we do a lot of times as managers, as directors, as leaders. We always go, okay, we're going to make sure the team is okay, and we're not taking care of ourselves, and we're not growing professionally. So we're not setting a great example for our team. That's not a great example to always put yourself last, because eventually that catches up with you. And that isn't great for sort of a long trajectory.
As leaders, you cannot grow your team when you don't grow yourself. I think that's sort of like the view that I adopt, and most of the coaches that the people that I've interacted with is really similar. That's one of the reasons why I kind of like put in so much like learning opportunities for people like on as a webinar panel and stuff like that, because I do enjoy learning and I do enjoy organizing. That has been fun. Well, Tara, thank you so much. I am so honored that you took the time, and I'm glad that we had a chance to chat.
Absolutely. And one thing, Ashley, I promise I don't get any proceeds from Randy, but a lot of the topics that we're talking about, there's a new book that's out by Randy Braun, and it's the Playbook, and it's Something Major, the new playbook for women at work. And chapter 1 is on perfectionism, right? There's another chapter that's on boundaries, and it really talks about some of the stuff that we've been talking about. So if you're looking for a read, check it out.